Professor Wergely's here. We just launched our Ubuntu instance. It's an 18.04 Ubuntu Amazon AWS instance. We've selected it, and now we want to connect to it. So you can see here, once I click on connect, I have some information here. It tells you what the key pair file is. That's important because a year down the road, if you have the same server, you may forget which key pair file you used. It also has the public DNS there. If I go to the public DNS now, you'll see nothing opens. I don't have a web server installed. I have a server, but I don't have a web server installed. There's a difference between the two. The server is more of your hardware and components. It has a CPU, it has memory, it has storage. And the web server is a software that runs on your server. The web server will load HTML pages, run PHP or Node, whatever, depending on what web server you're using. We're going to be using a LAMP stack at first, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It's a similar server we set up in 2830. It's just on a Ubuntu instance. And our web server is Apache. So our server is a Ubuntu instance, so it's a Ubuntu server, and our web server is Apache. So step one is to open up an SSH client. You'll see on Mac, I can do command space, type terminal, hit enter, and the terminal will pop open. Now mine's really large so you can see it easier, but Mac it's really nice because they have a built-in SSH client. For Windows, you can use PuTTY. I actually have a video on YouTube to help you set up PuTTY, but that's not my recommended SSH client. I recommend you use PowerShell. So down here in the bottom left, if you're a Windows user, you can search PowerShell, or you can use Git Bash. You can go over here to the web, do download Git. Okay, you'll see this git-scm.com. You can click on that. Download. You can see you can download for Mac, Windows, or Linux. Okay, Windows, it's good to use Git Bash because then you can run Linux-like commands and you can follow along with my videos. Same with PowerShell, but some students were having problems when they came to this step here, change mod 400 on the PIM file. Now on Windows, if you needed to change permissions, you can do it in the Properties tab, or you can search online and find out the PowerShell command. With Git Bash, you don't need to change mod 400. You can directly do this SSH command without changing mod. Okay, it all depends on what you're going to use. I'm going to be on a Mac machine. You can go over to my video to use PuTTY, or you can use Git Bash, or you can use PowerShell, or maybe you have your own SSH client you prefer to use. That's fine too. As long as you can SSH to this server, you'll be fine. Now, the first step is to open up an SSH terminal or command prompt, and then CD, change directory to where your key pair is. Now, I've created a directory for this class. Okay, so I'm going to CD to that directory. And remember, I put it in the AWS instance directory. So I did CD, ls. So CD is change directory. ls is list the current directory. You can see all my files there, and you'll see the PIM file that I'm using for this particular instance. Now on the instructions, it says to change mod 400. So I'm literally going to copy this command, paste it in the terminal, and voila. If I do an ls-l, you'll see the permissions have changed. You'll see this test key were the original permissions. It's read write for the owner, read for the group, and read for the world. If I do a change mod 400, you'll see now it's only readable to the owner. Okay, it's only readable to the owner. And that's what's required. If I actually try to go in SSH without changing the permissions, okay, you're going to get some funny message. I actually change it back really quick. You don't need to do this. I'll just show you what message you would get. So this is the original permissions. If I immediately try to go in SSH, click on yes, this is the message you'll get, unprotected private key file. If I go back and change it back to 400, come over here and copy the SSH command, you'll see SSH-I, so you're including this file. Make sure you CD to the same directory so this command will work. If you're in your home directory, you may have to put the full file path for this to work. You'll see I'm connecting to this server with this user. So the username's Ubuntu at, and then it's going to be your public DNS. Okay, the public DNS is essentially the IP address. So I'm logging in with this user at this server's IP address. So I'm going to copy this SSH command, paste it. Earlier I clicked yes, so this time I didn't have to, but you'll type in the keyword yes, which is saying that you do trust the server and that you recognize it and that you're going to trust it. So you'll see it added it to the list of known hosts, and then it didn't ask me a second time. So now you'll see it change from Nicholas's MacBook Pro work to Ubuntu. Okay, to Ubuntu. And then it's at some IP address. So I'm logged into the server successfully. Okay, now what we want to do is set up a production server. Okay, so we're going to go through a fairly long tutorial, but if you're able to follow along, then you essentially completed the first challenge. So we've launched an instance. We've successfully SSH to the instance. Now, the first thing I like to do is update the instance. I can go ahead and set up my LAMP stack. I can set up fail to ban. I can set up all these production softwares to help my server be more secure and then do an update. But the problem with that is a lot of those packages, a lot of those software tools will then have some bugs or have some problems. So what's nice is when I have a fresh server, brand new, nothing installed, go ahead and do an update and go ahead and do an upgrade. Okay, if you update in the beginning, it'll help you not have bugs later on down the road. So I'm going to do a sudo apt-get. Now, if you've taken my previous course, we used yum, sudo yum install. For a Ubuntu instance, it's apt-get. So I'm going to do sudo apt-get. And I'm going to do an update here. So I'm going to do an update. Okay, it's going to update packages, make sure Ubuntu's up to date, update security releases. It's good to keep your server up to date. That way it's more secure. Okay, and I'm also going to do a sudo apt-get. And I'm going to do a upgrade. Okay, so I'm going to do an upgrade. I'm going to select Y because it needs to download some material there. Okay, go ahead and let it run and finish. And once it's finished, my server will be up to date. It'll be upgraded. It'll be as secure as it can be for Ubuntu 18 at this point in time. And since I haven't installed anything yet on it, I should prevent having bugs later down the road. Okay, once that's done, I can run the command lsb_release-a, and you'll see all the information. So I'm using Ubuntu server. It's Ubuntu 18.4, and the code name is Bionic. Okay, it's the LTS, so it's the latest stable version, and we are ready to go. So we are ready to set up a production-like server. Okay, we have a few things to do. We're going to set up the host name. We're going to set up the time zone. We're going to add a user to the group, disable root logins, install fail to ban. We have a lot coming up. Stick with Professor Wergeles, and we'll see you in the next video.